Hello, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the application catalog versus the software center. And Microsoft is doing away with the application catalog and moving more towards the software center. So I wanted to talk about the difference between these two and why Microsoft is moving away from it. Now, originally when application catalog came around in SCCM 2012, and this was a way to create a self-service for users to go into the catalog and install the software for themselves as a self-service rather than the IT always pushing out the software. So it was kind of a self-servicing thing when the application catalog came about. And the software center was for required deployments and install for user deployments. And now, prior to 1906, you could install the application catalog and go ahead and deploy application to the application catalog. Now, since 1906, you can no longer create the application catalog. So I'm going to go over that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So with that, let's just get started. So as I mentioned, if you come into the SCCM, now as you can see, I'm going to go to administration. I'm going to click on the server that I installed the application catalog. As you can see, they're listed here. Now, you can have multiple application catalog. Most large corporations typically have like one or two. So if I right-click on this right now and go to Add Site Server Roles, and if I go Next, and as you can see, I can no longer choose or select the application catalog to install. But I've already installed this prior to 1906 because I've been using the application catalog for many years. And so I'm very familiar with the differences here. And so now I can no longer, if I wanted to add another application catalog server, I can no longer do that. So because Microsoft is no longer supporting the application catalog. Now, just because it's no longer, I can no longer add any additional application catalog servers, even though I've installed it prior, I can still use the application catalog to deploy application to it. I just won't get support from Microsoft if there's an issue or what have you. So, and then we're going to talk about how to convert everything back to the software center as Microsoft is sort of pushing us to do. With that, let's just get started. So with the main difference between the application catalog and the software center, I'm going to bring that up on a machine. Well, first, let me just go over to one of the software that I'm using for this testing. So here we have the application Firefox. Now, if I go into deployment types, I go to properties, there are two options that I can select when creating the package, the application itself. I'm waiting for it to come up. So when you go to the user experience, right now it's installed for user. So that means if I set install for user, that will show up in the software catalog. Application catalog, not in the software center. It's the way it was before. So that means this would be a deployment to the user collection, not a device collection. Now, if I change this to install for a device, that will show up in the software center and it will be available in task sequences, but it will not show up in the application catalog. So those are the main two differences. One is more of a user deployment, and which is what the application catalog was for. It was for users to kind of be their self-service for the users to go ahead and install applications that are available to them. So this one is set up for install for users, so I just wanted to show you that for right now. And so when I do, I have two deployments. I have one for install for system prior to me changing it to install for user, and then I have another one going to a simple user collection. And they're both available, so that there's no required time that I have to put in or deadline time. So I'm going to bring up the Windows 10 machine that I have it deployed to. Now, as you can see, after doing a machine policy update and doing an application deployment evaluation, I can then now see this application in the application catalog. So it still works, and I can still do the install, what have you. And so, go away. All right, so I can still see it. It gives me because I chose install. The only thing you can't do is you can do an uninstall in the application catalog, but it's preferred to do it in the software center. And now I'm logged into the user that it's been applied to. So if I log in as another user, I will not see this Firefox listed. That was the nice thing about the application catalog install for user. You can target specific users that would get this software, like especially licensed software like Project or Visio and what have you. And so you could tailor, like based on, whoever's logged into this machine. So if I log in with a different user, I'm not going to see this listed. So that was the nice thing about the application catalog. With the software center, and I got this up now, because I have it available, it knows that this is already installed, so it's just saying if I click on it, it's just going to give me the option to uninstall it because it's already installed. Now if I click on the, and this is installed for system. Now this application can also be available in the task sequence when I push out the image. I can actually choose the install for system because you will not ever see install for user as part of your choices when you create a task sequence, and I'll show you that in a second. So now this is installed for system. So now because it's already installed, it's going to say it's installed and compliant. But now the user has a choice to uninstall it if they choose to. We're here in the application catalog. If I click on it, I can't uninstall it. I can only do an install even though it's installed. That was one of the little caveats with the application catalog. It was available to users to do the install. So since it's already installed, I just get that option. So that was the only thing here. Now, if you want to, all you have to do to take any deployment you have installed for a user, you can just easily change that installation type, or the user experience, I should say. So let me go back over to the user, go back over here to the application deployment types. So all I have to do is now I can do install for user, that's fine, and it will show up as in the software center. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop these two deployments, and I'm only going to deploy to a user. And you'll see that after 1906, if you have 1906 installed, it will show up in the software center now. Whereas before, it only showed up in this application catalog. So I just wanted to point out the main two differences. One is really a user-based installation, so it's targeted a specific user, and the other one is targeted for a specific system. And you can make them available, what have you. Even if you do install for user, it will still show up in the software center now, but prior to 1906, it would only show up in the application catalog if you had the application catalog role installed. So with that, I'm just going to tweak a few things here, and we'll show you that in a moment. Okay, so what I did was I created a sample. It's installed for user, the application, and I pushed to a user collection. Only this time I did it required because it's an uninstall. So whenever you do an uninstall, it's never an available. It's always a required package because you can't select available and then uninstall. So because of that, now because it's an uninstall, it doesn't show up in the software catalog, application catalog, but it does show up in the software center. But because it's an uninstall, it's going to try to install the package, which is fine. So in this case, it's an install for user. However, it's an uninstall package, but it does show up in the software center. The only applications that show up in the application catalog are those that are installed, like in the previous little while ago, you saw it listed here, and now you don't. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change it to install for a system, and you'll see that it won't show up here, but it will be in the software center. Now, because I installed for user, if I go to the actual collection, it's the machine, that user, which is this one. No, okay. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to install for a device, and then I'm going to do a different deployment. So you'll see that while this one was installed for user, but because it was an install, now I'm going to change it to install instead, and you'll see it'll show up in the software catalog. Application catalog. Sorry, I keep saying that. So I'm going to go ahead. See, it's uninstall required. Okay, so I'm going to stop this. I'm going to change it to a device, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is what I mean. Once you select uninstall, it doesn't give you the option to do required or available. When you go back to install, I can now make it available. So I'm going to do that here. So I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. One thing I want to point out is that I changed this one back to install for system, and this is still installed for user. So 64-bit is installed for system, and this is still installed for user. So if I come in here and go to the task sequences, and I'm going to create a task sequence. Oh, actually what I could do is do this. Let's say I want to edit this and I want to add that Firefox in this, one of the things it does is install or install that application. Now if I go to application, so if I click on new, and you see how, let's see, yeah, they both have to be at the, that's okay. They both have to be at the install for system. They can't just be one or the other. They have to both be at the same. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Go back in here. Oops. So I'm going to change this back to install for system, and then I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Do is come in here and go instead of under user experience, under deployment types, install for deployment types, and then you right click, go to properties, you come into user experience and you change it to install for system, click on apply. It does take a moment. So once this is finished, I'll do a deployment evaluation on that Windows 10 box, and you'll see that it will show up in the Software Center, but not in the application catalog because it's now installed for device instead of a user. There you go. It's finished. And we've got the deployments already going. It's available. So all I got to do is do a machine policy, and I'll be right back. Okay, and here you have it. You see it in the Software Center, but you do not see it in the application catalog. So again, the application catalog was really geared towards user deployments, not device deployments or install for a system at all. So those would never show up in the application catalog. So it was one of those things where, you know, if you had a scenario where you have like a licensed product, like a project or Visio, then you can create a group for those machines, that users, and then you would target that so only those users would see that licensed software in the application catalog. So that's kind of how that was more, it was just really as a self-service. So let me know, do you guys use the application catalog? Was it something that you used a lot? Do you prefer the Software Center? Do you prefer the application log? I kind of just demoed like the differences between the two, and you know, and that Microsoft is now moving away from the application catalog and moving towards the Software Center. The only thing that's kind of, from a user perspective, they're not going to know the difference between something that's available to them versus something that's just required. So the nice thing between the application catalog, it was a way to separate user deployments versus install for system type deployments, like stuff that's required. And so you're kind of losing that a little bit. So I don't know, let me know what you guys think. Do you think that Microsoft should bring back the application catalog? Are you happy to see it go? Do you prefer the Software Center? So there are a little bit, you know, and like now when I catalog, if I go into, so that's basically it in a nutshell, the difference between the application catalog and the Software Center. Let me know if you have any questions, and yeah, it's going away. So now the easiest way, now if you do have a lot of applications that are deployed to the application log, the really easy way to fix that is to change it to go to the application itself. For example, like this one, and if anything is, let's see if we can do, yeah, all you have to do is right click on like the deployment types. It'll tell you this is a script installer type thing. I'm just saying, you can just come in here. I think you can add a column here, or there's a query that you can run to see all of the systems are made, reports that shows you all of the applications that are installed for user. And then you just come in here and then just change it to install for system, click on OK and apply. And then now the interesting thing about the install for a single, like if you come in here and go to device, now because I change it back to device, if I go back to desktops and go to this collection, I'm just going to go inside this collection. Now if I click on this offline, it's just showing that. But if I right click on this, just for and you see where it says, oh, it's not in there. You have to be outside that. So we go to devices. I just booted up my lab, so it just hasn't. Now you see where it says I can install for an application. I still created you still have to create the collection, but now I can just go install application. If I go to server, I have to make it available as a user. So install for user will then now make it available to me to available to install as a single device install in deployment. So I have a video on how to push a package to a single device. So, but you still have to create the collection, and it still has to be installed for user for that to work properly. So that's why it's nothing showing up. It's because I have none of them show up as installed for user. But if you want to see that video, I'll have that in the link below on how to deploy to a single device in SCCM. And that's basically it. So let me know what you guys' thoughts are. Are you using the application catalog? Not using it? Are you good to? Are you glad to see it go? Do you wish Microsoft would keep it around? Let me know your thoughts. Again, all the stuff will be in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel. There's going to be a lot more content coming your way. Again, thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye bye.